Thank you very much, Professor Servet. Queridos amigos y colegas, buenos días a todas, todos. Espero que estén bien y que los trabajos de la conferencia se puedan realizar regularmente. Desafortunadamente, mi español no es bueno, por lo que voy a tener que hablar en inglés. Me disculpo mucho por esto. So I'm sorry, but I'm not able to hold a conference in Spanish. So my apologize for this. First of all, of course, I have to thank not only the presidents of the International Society, President Janice Bellace and President-elect Maria Casas Bamonte for giving me the opportunity to hold this speech. But let me thank also very much the Peruvian Society of Labor Law and Social Security, and in particular, of course, Professor Monica Pizarro, who is very, very nice and helpful during all the fulfillments, preliminary fulfillments to the Congress. Of course, I'm very glad to be here this afternoon. It's, of course, a shame not to be in presence, but we hope to meet soon in presence, so to bridge this gap as soon as possible. This afternoon, I have to make a presentation of my paper, which is quite long and articulated. So I cannot condense the paper in the 20 minutes that the director of this session has given to me. So it's quite a tight time to make a summarize of all the aspects I have dealt with in my paper. So I have to focus on a couple of subjects which I think are the most attractive nowadays. And so for this reason, I will draw my attention particularly on digital monitoring, employees' privacy, so the effects in terms of breaching of employees' privacy, times porosity, and of course the challenges that these phenomenon arise to our legal system. So first of all, please let me share to you my slides. I have very essential slide just to help you following my speech. Can you see them? I hope so. If there are any problem, please tell me. So the means of control over working performance coming from AI application and tools are getting more pervasive and deep day by day, as we all know. This augmented monitoring is difficult to challenge in a social protection perspective, because of the expanding permeation between professional life and private life. The main purpose of employment privacy regulation is getting aside the employer from every worker's information or personal data, which is not strictly relevant to the job performing and which is not required for employment contract execution or asked specifically by public authorities. In any case, processing employees' data is prohibited to the employer if it is exercised not in a transparent, accurate, and adequate manner, or in a manner that is incompatible with the legitimate purposes assumed, or in a manner which permits identification of data subjects, in this case data subjects of course are the workers, for no longer than is necessary for the purposes for which the personal data are processed. The explosion of remote working and social networking has blurred the line between home and work, as our president say at the beginning in his presentation. So in many cases, it's extremely hard to detect whether the information lies in a personal sphere or becomes of business interest. The human-digital relations and consequent information are so disseminated and tied together to make it nearly impossible in practice to make a distinction between what is restricted to individual uses and what is functional to entrepreneurial aims. Workers' profiling and recruiting tools, which are automated forms of personal data processing, consisting of the use of personal data to evaluate certain personal aspects relating to a natural person. In particular, they tend to analyze or predict aspects concerning that natural person's performance at work, economic situation, health, personal preference, and so on, became lawful. So this work, with this profiling, this recruiting done in this way become lawful if they are conducted in a pertinent, proportionate, and adequate way, and they have been object of meaningful information to workers about the logic involved, as well as the significance and the envisaged consequences of such processing. The ratio of protection techniques adopted in Europe and in other Western countries is clear. The capacity of infotech to gather personal information on air is impressive and cannot be banned by legal regulation, since it took too far. Thus, it is worth setting substantial condition of exercising that could guide the processing to a better interests balance and procedural informative conditions that could lead to a better understanding on what's going on in the enterprises by a meaningful overview of the intended processing. The right to be let alone has given way to the right to develop one's social identity, which means that every worker has the power not to prevent the employer from using personal data, but to prevent the employer from using personal data in a manner that could distort employees' identity and alter the common perception of the person in the reference community. On the other hand, in the most powerful states, for example, USA and China, data concerning jobs performance and all the activities done in the workplace are considered employers' property, and there is no expectation of privacy. The collection and processing of those data is always lawful, at least until it infringes on a specific binding provision. For example,
could you turn the slides, please? The slide.
No. I'm still on the first slide.
Okay, that's fine, because there are some requests for that.
Okay. This collection and processing of those data is always lawful. I mean, in this perspective of these prominent states. A different approaches was followed by the European countries, which prohibit the control over the jobs performing done through digital tools, unless the monitoring is stemming from the working tools. It has from the common devices used to carry out working tasks, or from the legitimate purpose of meeting objective needs, such as organization productive requirements, protection of company assets, protection of employees' health and safety, employers' judicial defense. A right to privacy is granted, but it is evident that it stands as a general principle, so even in European countries, more than an effective operating rule due to the wideness of the exemptions and the ubiquity of info tech. Furthermore, automated individual decision-making within the workplace is permitted even in European countries under some imperative conditions regulated by Article 22 of the General Data Protection Regulation, and are the fact that this automated process is necessary for entering in a contract or is authorized by union or member state law, and is based on a worker's explicit consent. But in any case, also if these conditions exist, there might be recognized the right of the worker to obtain human intervention on the part of the controller, the employer, to express his or her point of view and to contest the decision. Given that the worker's consent is quite easy to acquire, at least at the beginning of the employment relation. And given that it's very simple to demonstrate the nexus between automated decision-making and hiring process or job performing, the worker's protection against errors committed by the algorithm is restricted to the possibility of having voice in the automated choice. It has been recognized as a right to human interaction. It has the possibility for workers affected by a wrongful decision or supposed wrongful decision taken by machine to challenge that decision before the human functionally responsible for that automated process, pretending a response to their complaint. The response may be comprehensive of the logic behind the algorithm, but it may also be limited to the visible outputs, depending on the existing of a disclosure willing of the employer and based on whether the employer owns or not decoding the essence of the algorithm. Criteria of evaluation should be transparent and known to the workers, and to ensure avoidance of arbitrary or discriminatory outcomes. To this end, even if it were possible to have automatic changes and updates in the operation of algorithms through self-learning artificial intelligence, the final assessment should be questionable by workers before a human manager, who is compelled to give an accurate response to the file brought out by the employee. In any case, if the response doesn't fit the grievance, it could be challenged before labor courts as any other human decision pertaining the employment relationship, with the advantage for the claimant of a partial reverse of the burden of proof, in analogy to what happens, and it has already happened in many occasions, with the classification disputes. We have a well-known case just really in Bologna about this fact and the application of this reverse of burden of proof when the enterprise doesn't give appropriate evidence of the coding of the algorithm. So as digital surveillance becomes ever broader, albeit in European countries, it should be respectful of legitimate purposes, proportionality, and security principles. Paradoxically, the control over working time has turned down, but it is only an apparent paradox. The rules on working hours and their respect are based on the industry work model. They cannot suit the new forms of work organization linked to the intensive use of digital devices, automated decision-making processes, and remote working. The transformation of the employment relationship in a cooperative and project-oriented way, in which you are obliged to use digital devices for business aim anytime, anywhere, determines an evaluation of work which is not dependent on the amount of time spent on professionals' duties, but to the results and achievements stemming from the employee's activity. This trend has two effects. One positive, to give to the worker more time and space, flexibility to do the job. The second, negative, to blur the line between leisure time and working time, enlarging the employee's exposure to comp needs. So this phenomenon has been called time sporosity, to stress the fact that working time has widened its meshes while embracing almost the entire active worker's life.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. Okay. So to overcome this this problem, there has been provided not only a right to disconnect, but also some collective initiative concerning the negotiation, the algorithm, which means union representative co-determinating or simply being informed about digital processes governing the work organization. But then not only right to disconnect, also counseling and medical services and some other measures have been taken at legislative and also at collective agreements level. I cannot go beyond this. I will refer. I'm referring now to the written paper. So we believe, along with Simon Dickin and Marco, that legal evolution, not deregulation, is the way forward for labor law. The reference might be the ILO Century Declaration for the Future of the Work, which is focused on the promotion of a human-centered approach to the future of the work. And so this is the right way to proceed, of course, with the collaboration of all the member states, because as we know, international rules are not binding in horizontal relationship within each member state, so workers cannot plead them before courts. So they are rules, provision, or guidelines that have to be implemented in a national level, of course. But then we think that because of the fact that companies and markets are largely transnational, as well as the social provision might be adopted by many states to become a common rule, avoiding social dumping and in fraud practices. And in particular, in this period, there are chances, of course, even for emerging country to push forward the European, but then not only European, also international, because as we know, United Nations has adopted the model of sustainable growth, a growth which is equal and socially sustainable. So we have to support this trend, this direction shown by ILO to promote policy coherence in pursuit of human-centered approach. And this is a goal that really we cannot miss. So it's a target that all the countries have the duty to bring and to support the better they can do. So I hand here my presentation, not to go behind my time. I've been behind my time for a little. I thank again our director for giving me the floor, and muchas gracias por vuestra atención.